May 8, 2014 became an unforgettable memory for Angelina Fernandez. Police sirens pierced the quiet of her home, where she lived as an 11-year-old girl. Neighbors rushed to the scene, drawn by a woman's sudden screams. What they witnessed was beyond belief. A woman was pleading for help at a neighbor's front door, her clothes completely soaked in blood. Angelina stood at her window, staring blankly at the unfolding scene, unable to comprehend what was happening. When the police arrived, they found blood scattered across the floor as if someone had spilled red paint, and a man lying on the ground. His name was Andrew Wagner, the homeowner and Stephanie Fernandez's fiancé. This tragic story began 5 years earlier. In 2009, at a nightclub near Worcester, Massachusetts, Stephanie was working while raising her young daughter Angelina as a single mother. One day, her eyes met those of a charming man with blue eyes, Andrew Wagner. Andrew was an ordinary employee working at Costco's tire shop, but he dreamed of becoming a law enforcement officer. He fell for Stephanie at first sight and actively pursued her. Stephanie, who found Andrew attractive, fell for him too, and their relationship progressed rapidly. Fortunately, Andrew became a father figure to Angelina. They watched TV shows together, went on beach trips, and spent summer vacations at Andrew's parents' cottage in Cape Cod. They seemed to be becoming a true family, and Stephanie finally believed she could have the perfect family she had always dreamed of. However, dark shadows lurked beneath their seemingly happy exterior. Stephanie's friends began noticing strange bruises on her arms and legs. Andrew started becoming increasingly controlling, interfering with what she wore and who she met. What initially seemed like attention from a loving partner gradually transformed into obsession. Andrew's control grew worse over time. He demanded that Stephanie quit her nightclub job and wouldn't let her wear clothes he hadn't approved. Sometimes he would randomly check her phone and forbid her from talking to other men. Like clothes slowly getting wet in a drizzle, the violence began gradually. It started with forcefully grabbing her arms but escalated into beatings. The situation became most severe after Andrew became a corrections officer. He grew accustomed to authority and control, and these controlling tendencies manifested in his relationship with Stephanie. Andrew wanted absolute obedience from Stephanie, and in severe cases, he would even threaten her with his gun. Angelina often witnessed these violent incidents, and despite her young age, she wanted to protect her mother. But there was nothing she could do. Why didn't Stephanie end this relationship? The reality of domestic violence isn't that simple. Stephanie was financially dependent on Andrew, and his threats made it difficult for her to seek help. Moreover, Andrew frequently threatened to harm her or Angelina if she tried to leave him. On May 7th, 2014, what started as an ordinary day soon turned tragic. Angelina was asleep in her second-floor room as usual. Stephanie was preparing dinner in the kitchen, and Andrew had just returned from a few days of business travel. But something was different that night. Andrew began intensely questioning Stephanie about what she had done while he was away. What started as a typical argument escalated, and Andrew began to get violent with Stephanie. Angelina woke up to the sound of a door slamming, followed by her mother's screams. Looking out her window, she witnessed a shocking scene. Neighbors were performing CPR on Andrew, with blood pooled all around him. The police immediately arrested Stephanie. In the interrogation room, she was extremely confused and kept asking about Andrew's condition. Only after hearing about Andrew's death did she begin to talk about that night. However, Stephanie's statements lacked consistency. She initially told neighbors, "I hit him because he hit me," but told police, "I stabbed him because he was wielding his gun." As her explanation of the same incident kept changing slightly, police suspected these variations were attempts to hide the truth. The physical evidence also contradicted many of Stephanie's claims. While she claimed Andrew had severely beaten her, police photographs showed no visible injuries on her face, only some bruises on her arms. Particularly, although she claimed Andrew had strangled her multiple times, no clear marks were found around her neck. Questions also arose from the crime scene. Stephanie said there had been an intense physical struggle near the sofa, but the coffee table and furniture in the living room were barely disturbed. While Stephanie claimed she held the knife for self-defense, Prosecutors suspected she had stabbed Andrew when he was off guard. 8 years after the incident, in June 2022, Stephanie's trial finally began. The trial had been repeatedly delayed due to evidence collection, legal debates, and the COVID-19 pandemic. During this time, Stephanie had to remain under house arrest wearing an ankle monitor. In their opening statement, prosecutors argued that Stephanie had killed Andrew deliberately and with premeditation. They brought forward several witnesses to prove Stephanie's violent tendencies. Daniel DeStefano, Andrew's friend and former police officer, testified that he had witnessed Stephanie hitting Andrew at a friend's wedding. Mike Laramie, Stephanie's former fiancé, testified that she had once wielded a knife at him and had stabbed furniture. The prosecution's expert, David Adams, assessed that there was insufficient evidence of Andrew abusing Stephanie and suggested that Andrew was actually the psychological and physical victim. The prosecution particularly presented violent text messages Stephanie had sent to Andrew. They highlighted messages like, "I hope you get hit by a car," and "just die," arguing that she wasn't merely a victim, but had psychological issues with anger management and had provoked Andrew with aggressive behavior. That wasn't all. Stephanie had sent Andrew pictures of herself engaging in sexual acts with her ex-fiancé Mike, mocking him. The prosecution argued this was evidence of Stephanie's attempts to psychologically manipulate and attack Andrew. The defense team, however, argued that Stephanie's actions were self-defense. They explained that she had suffered from extreme fear due to Andrew's continuous domestic violence and threats. If she hadn't acted that day, Stephanie would have been the one who died, they emphasized. Now 20 years old, Angelina also testified to help prove her mother's self-defense claim. She testified about witnessing Andrew's violent behavior since childhood, and the investigator who interrogated Stephanie on the day of the incident acknowledged seeing recent bruises and injuries on her. A psychological expert explained that Stephanie suffered from battered woman syndrome and showed symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder due to continuous violence and threats. The defense team finally put Stephanie on the witness stand to explain the situation at the time of the incident. Stephanie claimed that Andrew had assaulted her that day and attempted to force himself on her. She testified that he had charged at her shouting, "I'll kill you," and was accidentally stabbed while trying to grab the knife. Regarding the provocative messages and pictures she had sent to Andrew, she explained that she had acted out of extreme anger and that it was an expression of her fury at Andrew's control and abuse. She added that she now regrets these impulsive actions. In their closing arguments, the prosecution portrayed Stephanie as a calculated murderer with impulsive and violent tendencies. The defense team emphasized that Stephanie had acted defensively to survive, and that the prosecution had failed to prove clear intent to murder. After about 9 hours of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict of manslaughter. They determined that while Stephanie didn't intend to kill Andrew, she was ultimately responsible for his death. They concluded that both parties had been in a mutually violent relationship, and Stephanie was considered both a victim and a responsible party. The judge sentenced Stephanie to 8 to 10 years in prison. The judge emphasized that this was a judgment on her actions that day, not an evaluation of her past. During sentencing, Andrew's family called Stephanie the face of evil and requested severe punishment, with his mother tearfully pleading that she took Andrew's life away. Stephanie, in tears, maintained, "I loved him, I never intended to kill him," while Angelina defended her mother, saying, "Andrew's abuse was the cause of all this tragedy." Where did the love between these two people go wrong? The story of Stephanie and Andrew still leaves us questioning where the line between victim and perpetrator truly lies in this trial.